The Ukrainian side is talking about a breakthrough in the south in Zaporizhia. I can confirm as of now that Ukrainian troops have entered two more towns in the southern front line. We'll talk about this and its implications, its meanings in the situational picture, as well as obviously about the situation along the rest of the front line. We'll start here in the northeast. There have been further Russian attacks towards Kupiansk. None of them have been successful as far as I confirm it. I stand with my analysis of the situation that the Russians have reached their culmination point in their offensive in this region. According to Ukrainian sources, they seem to try to make up for the lack in manpower with artillery and air attacks, but as of now, at least, this was not successful. I can confirm some successes, though. The Ukrainians have had some success in Novoye Horivka. That's here in the bridgehead over the Sherebets that was created by the Russians in one of their counter-offensives or counter-offensives to fix Ukrainian troops in other parts of the front line. Here, Wargonzo, the Russian military blogger, is confirming that the Ukrainians have had some success there. Further south in Torske and in the Serebryanske forest, at Torske and in the Serebryanske forest, the Russians are reporting Ukrainian attacks, but I cannot confirm that they have been successful in any way. The speaker of the Eastern Forces of the Ukrainians is saying that the Russians are sending additional manpower reinforcements, additional personnel towards the front line between Crimea and Kupiansk. So basically along the whole front line here north of the Seversky Donetsk. So this would indicate that the attacks should continue over the coming days and weeks. South of the Seversky Donetsk, there have been fresh attacks on Bilohorivka. They have been of more significant intensity than in the past. So the Ukrainians were somewhat surprised by it, as this area of the front line has been relatively weak for a while. But even though they were kind of surprised by this attack, I cannot confirm that it has been successful in any ways. The Russians were also attacking here at Orihovo-Vasilivka and in the direction of Rihorivka. Russian military bloggers are claiming that they took the whole of Orihovo-Vasilivka and are clearing it now, meaning that they either occupied completely or mostly, and there's still some fighting going on. I cannot confirm this in any ways. There is no proof whatsoever, neither a Ukrainian admission, nor do we have any visual evidence of the Russians having entered that town, so it seems to be completely untrue, at least according to the sources that are available as of now. South of Bakhmut, the fighting is continuing. There have been Russian counterattacks in the direction of Klishivka, and the Ukrainians in between managed to cross over the railroad tracks that are now the main part of the front line, but they have been pushed back. So there I cannot confirm any advance for the Ukrainians. The fighting is also further south at Kurdyumivka, but I cannot confirm that the Ukrainians have been successful in any ways. We have some interesting news from Budanov, the GUR head, the head of the military intelligence in Ukraine. He confirmed in a recent interview with The Drive that this was actually meant to fix the Russian forces in place, as we said here on the channel since at least June, that while taking Bakhmut is surely nice, it has nowhere close to the strategic importance that would justify sending in strong forces, whereas for the Russians they can't afford losing it, as it has been their only visible success in their winter offensive, and a success that was achieved by the Wagner mercenaries, not by the regular armed forces of Russia. So should Russia lose it against Ukrainian counterattacks, it would be an embarrassing defeat. They must prevent a loss by all means, meaning any Ukrainian attack there will force the Russians to send reinforcements and redeploy units there, allowing them to fix them. According to Budanov, this was the main intent. While they still have plans and ideas how to liberate Bakhmut, it surely isn't the main goal. The main goal was to force the Russians to send as much as possible so those units can't fight somewhere else, and at least that part has been successful. Further south, Adaptiveka fighting also was continuing. I cannot really confirm any significant change in territory. And at Krasnohorivka, the Russians were continuing to attack, and they did achieve some success here in the tree line in the direction of Krasnohorivka, but overall not a big change in territory. They advanced some meters along the trees here. Further south at Marinka, Russian attacks are continuing. I cannot confirm any change in territory here. And there's also Russian attacks reported close to Mikilske, here at Wulda. Again, the front line didn't change, at least I cannot observe it. Further west, south of Velika Novosilka, the offensive is actually kind of dying down as of now. We have a Russian military blogger here from the Vostok battalion that should be a part of the so-called DNR, the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. They are saying that it's actually so quiet that they have the time to rebuild their fortifications, to replenish the minefields, etc., because the fighting has down to such a degree. This is a little different further west. Here at Orihif, we have reports of the Ukrainians that they reported some breakthrough here. I can confirm that Ukrainian troops have been spotted in Verbove. There is a drone footage of a Ukrainian BMP, a Ukrainian infantry fighting vehicle that's being shot at and probably being destroyed. It's not clearly visible on the video though, but we do know that Ukrainians have entered Verbove. There's also signs that the Ukrainians bypass Verbove to the west of it, pushing down further here. And Wargonzo was saying that the Ukrainians have had some success close to in the region of Novofedorivka. So they are trying to bypass in the north, pushing further east here, which is important. They need to push that eastern flank of their wedge into the Russian front line. They need to push it further east to allow them to advance further south. They seem to have had some successes here, even though I only have the Russian admission of their defeat. I do not have clear indication how far the Ukrainians have advanced. We also have visual evidence that there have been Ukrainian soldiers in Novoprokopivka. The video evidence was as unpleasant for the Ukrainian side as the one from Verbove. A Russian soldier is able to flank two Ukrainian soldiers and is shooting them from behind. But that proves that Ukrainian soldiers have entered into Novoprokopivka, which means that all the Russian fortifications to its northeast should have fallen. This is not a proof in either case that the Ukrainians are still in those towns. We cannot confirm that they have managed to take a foothold there, but it shows us that they managed to advance there and push into these directions. From Ukrainian side, there were some claims that this is a breakthrough. If I explain it to you, you already see that this is a massive exaggeration. A breakthrough would be to penetrate the enemy's lines and then being able to exploit it. And while the first point is at least to some degree true, there is no Ukrainian troop concentration and no sign of it being developed as of now that will actually exploit any penetration, as the situation is massively complicated by the proliferation of small drones that basically see any concentration of forces from the other side while it's even developing, even before it marches to the front line, and thus allows timely engagement with long-range weapons like drones, like like planes, combat helicopters, or artillery. So that we will actually see a massive breakthrough in the south seems highly unlikely. It's much more likely that the small attacks with small groups will continue while the Ukrainians try to push the Russians further south and increase their casualty rate to basically deplete the Russian reserves. So while the Ukrainians call it a breakthrough, as of now, we can confirm some successes there, but by technical terms, I don't see anywhere close to justify the term of a breakthrough. Still, though, it's some successes, and they at least have entered those two towns. Further west on the Dnipro, we have additional reports from fighting. The Ukrainians have had apparently some activities on this island here, and on other islands there's some report of a bridgehead close to Oleshki. It's probably on one of the islands. I don't see that right now Ukrainians have forces on the left bank of the Dnipro, but the Russians are kind of in a panic because they say 4 brigades have been sent to Kharkiv, to Kherson, And of those 4 brigades, several of them are naval infantry. And naval infantry is obviously trained, at least to a certain degree, to operate through water, and thus they would probably be the best units for a river crossing in case that's actually true. There is right now, I have not seen evidence of this actually being true, that those brigades were actually sent to Kherson, sorry, that they were actually sent to Kherson. We do not see evidence of the Ukrainians trying to cross the river. I talked in length about it in the past, how difficult that operation would be, and even initial success could still mean utter defeat and destruction of invaluable troops and equipment. So this would be one of the most dangerous operations for the Ukrainians. But by sending those troops there, if it's true, they will force the Russians to react, redeploy reinforcements that can't stop the Ukrainian troops south of Orihif, and if the Russians don't deploy them, maybe that opens a window of opportunity. But as of now, I think it's clearly far too early to expect a massive river crossing anytime soon. I would be surprised if it happens at all, but the Ukrainians have surprised us a couple of times in the past already. Let's switch over south to the Crimean Peninsula. We have some more interesting informations. Russians are saying that 2 nights in a row, landing parties have been defeated at the Takhankut Peninsula, so here, which means that it's probably not an amphibious operation that they try to build a bridgehead here. That should be like RIBs, rigid inflatable boats, small seagoing boats with small groups of commandos that were probably planning to blow up more radar stations, more air defense units there or something like this. But it shows that the Ukrainians are still able to operate close to the shore here on the Crimea. This is one of their shaping operations we've seen in the past, where they occupied the gas drilling stations here and dismantling the Russian surveillance equipment, and thus taking basically the Russian opportunity, the Russian ability to observe the Western Black Sea, reducing it and thus giving themselves more freedom, both with commando raids on small boats, as well as with their cruise missiles, as well as with their naval drones. And when we come to cruise missiles and drones, we have more information. In the time between the 18th and the 24th of September, so within 1 week, the Russians say at least 120 attacks with drones, with Neptune ASMs, anti-ship missiles, and with Storm Shadow cruise missiles were done just on the Crimean Peninsula. So 120 in 7 days is almost 20 per day. This shows us how much the intensity has grown of the Ukrainian attacks on the Crimean Peninsula, while we can probably all remember the initial phases of the war when the Ukrainian side had like 100 Tochka-Us with a range of 100 kilometers, and that was more or less it. That was all of their ability to strike further out behind the Russian lines. Now they're able to strike hundreds of kilometers behind the front line, and they're doing it in an intensity of more than 120 attacks within 1 week just alone. And one of those attacks actually hit the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet. I reported it in the last situation report, and Budanov, the commander of the GUR of the Ukrainian military intelligence, has confirmed that the headquarters was attacked during the day because the Ukrainian side had knowledge of a meeting, a command staff meeting, and at least according to reports, the Ukrainians claim that the admiral commanding the whole Black Sea Fleet was killed in that strike. We do not have a confirmation by the Russians yet, but if we look at past reports, if they report the killing of a commander of that level, it usually was true. So I would probably expect it to 80 to 90% to actually have happened, that he was actually killed there, but we do not have the final confirmation. He might be one of those guys that were claimed to be dead and later reappeared. But it seems at least likely that the Ukrainian attack actually hit a command staff meeting and probably killed and injured quite a lot of high-ranking officers. The Russians struck back. They hit Odessa with Caliber cruise missiles, with Onyx, and with drones. They hit the Odessa hotel there and claim that it was used as a military command HQ, basically striking back the same way. At least there are some indications that this might be true. First of all, there are reports that for months this hotel, probably for over a year, was no longer in use and thus empty. So if that's true, the number of civilian casualties should be minimal to non-existent. But we've seen that it was hit and it was burning like a torch. But there are also pictures of SUVs, of Humvees, parked right in front of it, and there are supposedly some local reports of generators running during the night and of soldiers entering and leaving the building. So as of now, we have no clue whatsoever. The building might have been empty, as it's quite possible that it was, or it might have been used from the Ukrainian side as a headquarters. As it's a hotel, it even has rooms with beds. So in theory, a lot of them could have slept in there as well and thus been killed in the attack. But as of now, we have no evidence whatsoever. We have the Russian claim that it was an HQ, and that's it. So could have been a lot of casualties, could have been none. We simply don't know it as of yet, at least when I finished the research. But that was already it from me for now. If you like this situational picture, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps with the algorithm. If you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. In the future, for roughly 10 more days, the studio will be like this, like the children's room of my sister. At least a friend gave me some lights, so it's no longer that dark. And at the early of October, I'll be back in my usual studio, so we'll return to the usual audio and visual quality that you're used to. But I would still appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss this, and I hope it wasn't too horrible as of now. Leave a comment in the comment section. What do you think about the attack on Odessa, and what do you think how long the Ukrainian offensive in the south will continue? As they're only attacking with small infantry groups, they could theoretically continue for months into winter. There are already some Ukrainian claims that they will do so. So leave a comment what you think about the situation there. That can be really interesting too. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting me this way. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.